Today I'm going to talk about the documentary, The Social Dilemma. Social media is fighting to get our attention. I looked at my Facebook feed, my LinkedIn profile, Google search, and Instagram to see what kind of sponsored links or promoted posts were in my feed. Well, they knew me. They got me. It's all about what gets our attention. Well, in addition to watching the documentary Social Dilemma, I watched a podcast on YouTube with Tristan Harris, who was in Social Dilemma, and Joe Rogan. Joe was the interviewer. And they talked about how social media is changing our lives. Social media is using powerful algorithms or math formulas to determine what catches our attention and what we will click on. Have you ever driven by a car accident and slowed down and looked over to see what was happening? Well, in Minnesota, we call it the Gawker's slowdown. That's exactly what social media is doing. They're putting one car accident in front of another, right in front of you, so that you will keep turning your head and looking. What rises to the top of popularity is what is getting people's attention. And social media controls all of the data. They are gathering large amounts of data on each one of us, and they control it. Now, in other countries, Facebook is there too. And in the podcast, he talked about where there was one dominant culture who were on Facebook, and there was a non-dominant culture who was not on Facebook. Well, the dominant culture started talking about the non-dominant culture in really bad ways, kind of like gossip. And pretty soon, all the dominant culture people were so riled up that there were actually murders to the people in the non-dominant culture, and they hadn't even been part of this conversation. So it's impacting not only those who are on it, but those who are not on it. In the podcast, they also talk about how major news outlets are referring to Twitter to figure out what to report on, because those are the stories that people are paying attention to. Hang with me, there's good news at the end. I want to give you something to use as you manage and navigate the social media landscape. It's troubling for me as an adult. Have you ever been caught in a computer scam? Well, I had somebody hack me and sell me something, and fortunately it was caught before it cost me anything. But these people are really good. Or it's like a salesperson in a store who's really good and gets you to buy something you probably wouldn't have bought without them there. And this is difficult enough, but think about kids and how they have powerful engines and algorithms attacking them to put in front of them what will make them pay attention. Whenever they have a smartphone, they're sucked into this group think of what is popular, what is getting clicked on. Now, interestingly, on a side note, I listened to another podcast of Elon Musk, who started Tesla and SpaceX, and he was talking about this crazy idea of a 1-inch diameter kind of battery-like thing that could be implanted in a person's skull with wires going into the brain to help things like epilepsy and Parkinson's and eyesight and even motion, moving limbs that hadn't moved before. That was pretty crazy. And the interviewer was asking, well, how far away is that? And doesn't that seem like a stretch to implant something like that in your brain? And Elon Musk, in his very calm demeanor, said, well, we're cyborgs anyways. We're just about cyborgs now because we've got that phone in our hand and we're responding to it all day long. So we're not that far away from having something implanted because we're already using it so often. And again, The social media world knows how to get our attention. Now back to the social dilemma. They talk in the documentary about how each one of us are a little bit like a voodoo doll, and the social media giants are trying to pick us, poke us with a pin because they know what will get our attention. And they talked about how when you watch a YouTube video, 70% of the next video you watch is determined by what's recommended. So beware, just know that, wow, do I really want to watch this? Or is the search engine just recommending it to me? And they talked about how young girls were looking up diet videos. And what they found was if a young girl wants to look at a diet video, the next thing she's interested in is a video on anorexia. So that's what's being recommended. Not necessarily good for those girls, but it's what will grab their attention. Likewise, they realized that young moms were looking at YouTube videos about how to make their own baby food. And what was being recommended to them was anti-vaccine videos because they would be interested in a more natural approach. So just think about children and what they are subject to. And they did make the point in the podcast that many social media higher ups won't let their own children use those platforms. He said that's how we know that there's a problem. So I have 3 questions to give you to help you navigate this world. The first is, what gets your attention? Know it, pay attention to it, acknowledge it. If it's porn, it's porn. Just realize that is what gets your attention. And because only then can you address it and do something about it if it's some kind of negative behavior you want to get rid of. It might be fear. Fear is something that gets my attention. Or it might be celebrity status. That's what gets my attention. Or it might be some really good things. Healthy recipes. That's what gets my attention. Things to help me meditate and be calm and humor. That's what gets my attention. Just know what gets your attention. Be very aware of it. The second question is, how am I going to manage, or how are you going to manage your diet of social media? It's just like food. We're consuming this information. And like food, if we consume too much of a bad thing, there are bad consequences. So it's the same thing with social media. If you are consuming too much of it, too much bad stuff, it'll be bad for you. You don't necessarily have to avoid it altogether, but you might understand that you need to do things like set a timer, or have your children tell you, Mom, 10 minutes is up. Or I have a girlfriend whose daughter put an app on her phone so it would shut off after a certain amount of time because she saw that her mother was spending too much time on social media. And the third question might not seem at all like it has to do with social media, but it really does, because it's about what's getting your attention. What do you think about yourself? What do you believe about yourself? What do you know about yourself? How strong or weak are you against other people's opinions? Do you believe your own opinion, or are you easily swayed by other people's opinions? Do you know what you believe, or can you be taken in by someone maybe that you don't even know and what their opinion is? I talk about our mental health as being like a house. And how strong is your house to the outside influences? How much control do you have over the front door and what you let in or what you don't let in? Is the door strong enough to not let in the bad stuff? And also, is that door strong enough to keep in the good stuff? How comfortable are you in your mental health house? What do you think about yourself? I definitely recommend the documentary, The Social Dilemma, so we're aware and that we can be part of the solution. This is a very big giant and very relevant in our society, and we all need to play a part in being a solution. Take a good look at what impact it has in your life. Be well.